Well, here we are. The Trump tariff era has begun. Stock markets across the developed world dropped steeply yesterday as U.S. President Donald Trump made good on his threat to hit Canada, Mexico, and China with steep tariffs on goods they sell to U.S. buyers. Canada and China responded immediately with tariffs of their own. Mexico's holding off, at least for now, hoping it can negotiate the tariffs down. Some Canadian economists, meanwhile, believe the most likely scenario is that significant U.S. tariffs remain in place for about a year and that the Canadian economy is pulled into a mild recession. There's lots to talk about. Let's get started with our featured guest of the morning. He's Allan Small, Senior Investment Advisor at the Allan Small Financial Group, IA Private Wealth. Allan, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Are your clients worried about this environment? Are they talking to you and asking you questions?
Yeah, a lot of questions, a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls. A lot of people wondering, is there something they could do with their portfolio, perhaps investments that they can be in or shouldn't be in this environment? And so, yes, a lot of questions and unfortunately not that many answers because for the most part, it's difficult to say what's going to happen in the future, right? I even had one client ask me if he should sell out totally yesterday. And it's tough because let's say there is some sort of a deal or some sort of, take back of some of the tariffs, maybe a lessening of the tariffs. Perhaps the market gets a bit of a jump. We're seeing it in the futures this morning with, the president, or at least Howard Lutnick, hinting that the president may do something today, as early as today, perhaps scale back the tariffs in some capacity. And we're seeing the reaction on the market. So any hint of that or any action towards that, and I think these markets race a lot higher.
How should investors be prepared in terms of their portfolios of Canadian and U.S. stocks here? For instance, should they be less exposed to manufacturers like the auto parts companies and the automakers?
Yeah, I think there obviously are some areas of the market that perhaps you lighten up on, but because of the uncertainty, I think you just got to continue to invest as you have been. Look for good quality investments, stay diversified. There are a lot of investments that are trading very cheaply right now, cheap as compared to where they were trading just maybe 2-3 weeks ago. A lot of names in the tech space. The U.S. banks got hit pretty hard in the last 24, 48 hours as well. There are a lot of names that once upon a time were stretched in terms of valuation. Those valuations have gotten a lot better. So I think there's a lot there. I think if you're an investor that doesn't need their money in the next, a short period of time, I think there's a lot to take a look at, perhaps upgrade the quality of your portfolio going forward. I don't believe that these tariffs will remain in place at these levels for too long. I think that if they were to do that, I think it would hit both countries tremendously. I know the president last night in his speech said that there could be, in not so many words, said there could be a little bit of pain in the short term, but that overall things would be good for the United States. So perhaps this is something that it happens in the short term, and then over time, the situation gets a little better.
There are quotes moving on the wires right now from Howard Lutnick, and we are watching for Lutnick to make some kind of statement. We thought it might come at about 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. He, as Lutnick, saying complaint categories could be autos as well as others. So I don't have a lot of context there. Let me see if I can do a search here to bring up more headlines. Otherwise, we'll continue to watch them for you. He said yesterday, here are some comments from Howard Lutnick. They began just a few minutes ago. Trump maybe, he said, will consider giving relief. He's commenting on Canada, Mexico tariffs. These headlines are timed at 8:03 Eastern time today, so 4 minutes ago. Lutnick says Trump is this afternoon expects a Canada-Mexico announcement coming this afternoon, according to Howard Lutnick. Lutnick is the Commerce Secretary. He's a member of Donald Trump's cabinet. That the U.S. administration is aiming for somewhere in the middle on Canada and Mexico. Somewhere in the middle is in quote marks. Donald Trump is thinking about compliant categories under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. That's the replacement of the North American Free Trade Agreement, which was renegotiated under the first Trump administration. Lutnick saying compliant categories could be automobiles and others as well. So that sounds like a positive headline with respect to the automakers, and there's been all kinds of concern about the automakers and how they would fare under a steep tariff regime. Lutnick says, my understanding is the big three automakers are compliant. and Letnick finally saying it's about fentanyl with regard to tariffs. So a bunch of comments there. It's difficult to know. Again, Letnick saying in a headline that just moved an instant ago, a Trump decision on Canada and Mexico expected this afternoon. So the headlines seem to be suggesting, Alan, there'll be some type of texture or announcement announced this afternoon, perhaps some relief with respect to the automakers, but you would hesitate, of course, to read too much into these headlines. It's an evolving situation. How do investors react to headlines like this?
Again, and that's the thing. Very difficult to react to headlines. We don't know what that means until actually something is said. I figured that something would happen, and I didn't think it would take long, because I'm sure the president's getting a lot of heat from even Republicans talking about how business will be hurt. There's no doubt about that, whether it's on the energy front, whether it's on the automobile front, or any other area of the market. And I think it is the president's ammo, if you will, to kind of push forward very, very strongly, go for that knockout punch and then scale back. And perhaps this is part of the scale back. So it could cause the markets to move higher based on this. Based on the fact markets may take this as maybe this is just the beginning. Perhaps you'll scale back more in other areas for tariffs. So I guess we'll have to wait and see as the morning moves on.
In the longer run, you think the federal government of Canada is going to be forced to take some pretty dramatic steps to become more competitive with respect to the United States? In other words, tax reductions and regulation reductions, correct?
Absolutely. I think with these tariffs, I think that's kind of like the distraction, if you will. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, the president is winning a lot of business. He is forcing, with tariffs, a lot of businesses to come back to the U.S., whether it's Apple talking about $500 billion, whether it's individual countries like Saudi Arabia, $600 billion, or SoftBank out of Japan, another $500 billion. We're hearing a lot about these deals, whether it's because of the tariffs or whether it's because of potential cut in taxes and deregulation, reducing the regulations in the United States to be competitive on a world scale. I think Canada has to cut taxes. Our taxes are way too high to compete with the U.S., especially if they go that route. And if we don't, we're going to lose out on a lot of potential business. So I think to make things a lot easier for the premiers, for the prime minister, whoever that will be in the next few weeks, I guess, or months to come, I think taxes have to be reduced to remain competitive with the United States, because that's what the United States is going to do to earn business around the world.
That's Allan Small and his take